When my neighbor laughed after his kids spray painted my garage, I just stood there stunned. "Kids screw up," he said with a shrug. "You gotta learn to take a joke." I spent hours scrubbing that mess off until my hands were raw and bleeding. Then the next morning, I walked outside and found my car had been egged. That's when I decided to grab some paint of my own. What I ended up writing on his garage left him bawling right there in the street. But it wasn't spray paint, and it sure as hell wasn't illegal. We'd moved to Oak Creek, Wisconsin about 3 years earlier. It's one of those picture-perfect suburbs where folks wave from a distance but avoid actual conversation. Lawns are clipped down to the dirt, and nobody gives a damn about your life unless it turns into neighborhood gossip. My wife and I picked this place hoping for some calm and safety. Our son had just started college out in Ohio, and we were trying to downsize a little, catch our breath. I was still doing remote IT work, and she picked up part-time shifts at the local clinic. Life was quiet for a while, until Greg showed up. The house next door used to belong to this sweet elderly couple. They were the type to hand out full-sized candy bars every Halloween. After they passed, their kids sold the place in a hurry, and within a month, enrolled this loud-ass family. Greg swaggered around like the universe owed him a favor. Always shirtless, always nursing a drink, always acting like the street belonged to him. His wife barely spoke, kept her eyes down most of the time, but their kid, Logan? That boy just radiated trouble. The kind of teenager who already knew the system couldn't touch him. He couldn't have been more than 15, but he strutted around like a grown man. Hoodie on, smug little grin like he was in on some joke the rest of us didn't get. Never said a word to me, just stared every time we pulled into the driveway. I tried to be neighborly at first. Introduced myself, gave them a decent bottle of Cabernet the day they moved in, even offered to loan Greg my mower when I noticed his had crapped out. Every attempt I made, he gave me this half-assed look, like I was some punchline he was waiting to deliver. One time, eyeing my driveway, he said, "You like everything perfect, huh? You ex-military or just uptight?" I laughed it off, but it stuck with me. The petty nonsense started not long after. Random trash kept ending up in our yard. Empty beer cans in the bushes after one of Greg's driveway rages. The music would blare past 2 a.m. One night, I knocked on their door, trying to be civil, and asked if they could lower the volume. Greg answered, his buddies crowding behind him, all grinning like jackasses. "Come on, neighbor," he said. "It's Saturday night. Loosen up a bit." Next morning, our trash bin was knocked over and the mailbox had a new dent. Just bad luck? That's what I told myself. At first. But then the real gut punch came. It was a Sunday morning. I stepped out to grab the paper and stopped cold. Spray painted across my garage in giant, 3-foot red letters. "Loser lives here." The paint was still fresh, dripping down the panels. I just stood there staring. My throat went dry. My stomach twisted. I didn't call for my wife. She came out on her own and gasped when she saw it. You couldn't miss the words from the road. They screamed for attention. I turned slowly, hoping maybe if I moved carefully it would somehow undo what I was seeing. And there he was, Logan, kicked back on their porch, eating cereal with that same smug look, like it was just another lazy morning. No guilt. No fear. Nothing. I stormed over and knocked on their door. Greg answered, that damn smirk glued to his face. I didn't yell. Didn't threaten. Just said, "Your kids spray painted my garage." He didn't even bother to fake denial. "Kids make mistakes," he said. "Don't take it so serious." I just stared at him. "You think this is funny?" He shrugged. "It's paint, man. Chill out. Learn to take a joke." I wanted to knock his teeth in right there. But I didn't. Instead, I turned around and went home, so furious I could barely see straight. My lungs were working overtime. I grabbed every cleaner I owned, bleach, degreaser, anything, and started scrubbing. It took me 4 hours. The paint clung like tar. My hands blistered from the chemicals, and my back screamed the whole time. By the end, my palms were bleeding. My wife tried to help, but I told her no. I needed to feel every second of it. I wanted that pain to stick. That night I barely slept. I just kept thinking, he got away with it. And then the next morning, I walked out to find my car had been egged. Bad. Yolks streaked the windshield. Crusty egg whites clung to the sides. Shells jammed into the wipers and crammed under the door handles. I couldn't even grab the handle without getting slime all over my hand. And the smell, God, the stench was awful. Some of the eggs had definitely gone bad. Like they'd been saving them for just this occasion. And once again, no security footage. I had adjusted the camera angle after the garage stunt, but they'd hit the blind spot. I knew it was Logan. And I knew Greg didn't just allow it, he thought it was hilarious. That was the moment something in me flipped. I wasn't calling the cops. They wouldn't care. Neighbor dispute, no proof. They'd just hand me a form and suggest more cameras. No. I was done playing nice. I wasn't gonna throw punches. I wasn't gonna yell. I was going to hit them with something better, the truth. I started digging. Looked up Greg's full name, matched it with the address he'd moved from. Took a while, but eventually I found it, Mitchell Mitch Danner. Convicted in 2020. Odometer fraud. 5 counts. He'd been rolling back mileage on cars and flipping them for a profit. He took a plea deal. No prison time. Just a fine and a suspended license for a bit. Shady, but smart enough to scrub most of it from public view. But I found the case number buried deep in Milwaukee County's court records. Paid a few bucks for certified copies. Printed them out. Then I went to Home Depot, grabbed a gallon of weather-resistant chalk paint, removable, not permanent. Not spray paint. Not against the law. I picked bright white. Bought stencils. Big, bold, all-cap stencils. At exactly 3:14 a.m., wearing a hoodie, I snuck through our yard and crept up to their garage with a ladder. Took my time, lined it up just right. 3 lines. Huge, sharp letters. Convicted felon. Odometer fraud. Public record. Clean. Spaced perfectly. Looked official. Then I took the court documents, slid them into waterproof sleeves, and nailed them right to the center of the door. By 7:30 a.m., Carla from across the street had already snapped a photo. By 8, the neighborhood Facebook group was blowing up. Greg came out around 8:10. I watched through my blinds as he stepped outside, coffee mug in hand, and stopped dead. His face went pale. Mouth moved, but nothing came out. He just stared. Then his wife stepped out, took one look, and covered her mouth. Greg gave it his best shot trying to scrub off the chalk paint, but that stuff was built to outlast weather and time. He managed to yank down the court documents I nailed up, but by then, the damage was done. 3 different people had already snapped pics and shared them online. Funny thing is, I hadn't even said a word. And I wasn't anywhere near finished. By the end of that day, his world had already started crumbling. I kept my mouth shut, acted like I hadn't noticed a thing. Just fired up the mower and trimmed the yard like it was any other Saturday, while the neighbors peeked over fences and traded whispers in Greg's direction. He kept scrubbing that garage like a man trying to erase a nightmare. Switched to a stiff bristled brush. Even dragged out a pressure washer. The bold white letters started to fade, sure, but not enough to hide the message. If sunlight hit the wall just right, you could still read every word. And folks kept talking. The local Facebook group lit up with chatter. Someone asked the obvious, should a guy with a fraud conviction be running a car dealership out of his garage? That question opened the floodgates. People who'd bought from Greg before started chiming in. One guy said the odometer on his car never felt right. Another mentioned Greg refusing to provide a Carfax. It was all speculation, nothing concrete, but that didn't matter anymore. He'd lost control of the story. 3 days later, Greg knocked on my door. My wife answered first. I was in the garage rearranging tools, but I heard the tension in his voice and came out fast. He wasn't grinning this time. "You think you're funny?" he asked, locking eyes with me. "No," I said. "But I am honest. You're screwing with my business. My family." I cut him off. "And you screwed with mine when you let your kid tag my garage and egg my car. Don't talk to me about family." His fists clenched so tight I could see the tendons bulge. His face was beet red. "I should call the cops." "Go ahead," I said. "Chalk paint isn't a crime. And court records are public info. You want me to explain that to them? I've got copies." For a second, I thought he might take a swing. But instead, he turned and stomped off, yelling something under his breath I couldn't quite catch. Slammed his door hard enough to rattle the glass. That night, I found all 4 of my back tires slashed. They were careful, smart. Whoever did it managed to avoid every new camera I'd installed after the garage stunt. Like they knew exactly where the blind spots were. Greg swore it wasn't him. "We were home all night," he said, smirking when I brought it up. I didn't argue. I didn't even respond. Just replaced the tires and stayed quiet. But I didn't forget. That was the start of Phase 2. I began documenting everything. Dates. Times. Photos. Notes. Screenshots of all the online chatter. I turned it into a case file, complete with organized folders and printed proof. Then I mailed an anonymous packet to the Wisconsin Department of Transportation's Dealer Enforcement Unit. Inside, I laid out my complaint. Greg was running an unlicensed car sales operation out of his garage. I included everything: screenshots from his now-deleted business page, online listings for cars, photos of vehicles lined up in his driveway with handwritten prices taped to the windshields. 2 weeks later, a plain white sedan rolled up to his house. A guy in a state jacket stepped out with a clipboard and walked straight up to Greg's door. I watched from the window. Greg answered in shorts and sandals, looking groggy. Then confused. Then pissed. He started flailing his arms around, trying to explain something. The inspector barely reacted, just nodded, took notes, then walked around the driveway snapping photos. By the weekend, every car was gone. 6 vehicles. Towed or sold, I didn't care. They just disappeared overnight. Greg looked gutted. But karma wasn't done yet. Logan was still strutting around like nothing had changed, spitting in my yard when he thought I wasn't looking, throwing that same cocky smirk every time we passed. But then I noticed something. His hoodie changed. Not just a new one. This one had the emblem of a private Catholic school across town. So I made a call. Just asked if their students had a code of conduct policy. They did. Then I sent an anonymous email with a few attachments, a photo of the garage after it was spray-painted, and another of my egg-splattered car. This time, I had footage, clear as day, from my neighbor's doorbell cam across the street. No names. Just a message. "This student, who wears your school's logo, was caught damaging private property. Is this acceptable behavior?" I never got a reply. But a week later, Logan stopped wearing that hoodie. And he stopped making eye contact, too. I figured that was the end of it. Then something happened that took everything to a whole new level. One night around 11 p.m., a black SUV pulled into Greg's driveway. Lights off, engine quiet. 2 men got out. One of them carried a folder. They were only there 10 minutes. No one else saw it but me. Next morning, Greg didn't leave the house. Later that same day, a city inspector rolled up in a bright orange vest and a badge. Clipboard in hand. Someone had reported illegal modifications in Greg's garage. No permits, no ventilation, hazardous wiring. And this time, it wasn't me. I swear. Whoever tipped them off had done their homework. I figured he'd get a warning. Maybe a slap on the wrist. But this guy wasn't playing games. He spent nearly an hour inside the garage, measuring things, snapping pictures, talking into a radio. I stayed out of sight but close enough to hear the stress in Greg's voice when he stepped out later. Pale, shaking, flipping through the stack of papers the inspector had left behind. That night, my wife leaned over in bed and whispered, "Do you think you started all this?" I stared up at the ceiling. "No," I said. "I think I lit the match, but someone else poured the gas." 2 days later, a full city work crew rolled up. Yellow vests. Clipboards. One guy had what looked like a violation notice in his hand. Greg tried to argue. Loud. Angry. Didn't matter. They slapped a big orange stop work order on his garage door and posted a fine notice right in the window. $1, 300. Unlicensed electrical work. Unsafe wiring. Suspected illegal business activity. That was the tipping point. The whole block could feel the shift. For the first time since he moved in, Greg didn't look cocky, he looked small. Vulnerable. No more loud barbecues. No music. Just drawn blinds and dead silence. And just when I thought things couldn't go any deeper, Logan got caught stealing. It started with a Facebook post from Jamie down the street, single mom, has a teenage son around Logan's age. She said someone swiped 2 Amazon packages off her porch. Then she uploaded the footage. Clear as day, Logan, in that damn hoodie, grabbing the boxes and bolting down the sidewalk. The comments exploded. People started tagging Greg, demanding answers. One guy wrote, "First spray paint, now this? Your kid's out of control." Greg tried to run damage control. Swore it wasn't Logan. Claimed it was some lookalike and even tossed out threats of a defamation lawsuit. But nobody bought it. Everyone knew exactly who it was. The next day, the cops showed up at their front door. I couldn't hear what was said, but they were out there for a good half hour. Didn't arrest Logan, but that visit was enough to change things. After that, the kid stopped showing his face. Didn't even come out to grab the mail. And just when I thought things might settle down, things took another turn, worse this time. I woke up one night to this awful, chemical stench. Something burning. Not wood, something sharp and toxic. Plastic, maybe? I rushed to the window and spotted smoke drifting from the side of my garage. I grabbed a flashlight, slipped on shoes, and ran outside. Someone had stacked old newspapers up against my siding and tried to light them up. They'd doused it with lighter fluid and struck a match. It didn't catch fully, just scorched the siding and warped part of the corner panel. But if the wind had blown differently, it could have spread to the house. I called the fire department. They came out, wrote a report, and told me I was lucky. The next day, I went through every camera angle I had. I'd added more since last time, and this time, I got everything. It wasn't Logan. It was Greg. Hoodie pulled up. Same beat-up sneakers. He thought he was being slick. But I recognized the way he walked, that slight limp, the way he held his phone in his left hand. Couldn't miss it. And when he turned just a bit, the neighbor's porch light hit his jawline. It was him. No question. I sent the footage straight to the police. They came back the next morning. Took another report. Asked a few more questions. And this time, they walked up to Greg's door like they meant business. He didn't answer right away. When he finally did, I could hear him yelling from across the lawn. Accusing me of harassment. Said I was out to destroy him. But the cops didn't budge. They handed him a citation. Fire hazard. Attempted vandalism. Still just a misdemeanor, but it came with a fine, a mandatory court date, and a temporary restraining order. That meant Greg couldn't step foot on my property without risking jail time. That same night, his wife packed a bag, got in her car, and left. She didn't come back. And for the first time since they moved in, Greg's porch light stayed off. After she left, he went silent. No more yelling. No more smug looks. Just silence. He stopped mowing the lawn. Didn't bother with the trash bins. The place started falling apart, like one of those abandoned houses in a foreclosure listing. Weeds everywhere. Trash bags piling up. Porch light still off. He looked worn down. Thinner. Bitter and drained. I kept my distance and watched. And I didn't feel bad. Not yet. But then something happened that threw me off. One of Logan's former teachers showed up at my door. She introduced herself, said she used to work at the private school, and asked if we could talk, off the record. She looked uncomfortable, like she didn't want to be seen standing there too long. Told me Logan wasn't expelled, just suspended, and not just for the vandalism. There'd been fights. Verbal harassment. Skipping classes. She said there were whispers that Greg covered things up by threatening lawsuits. She hinted that Logan might have been heading down a dark road for a while, and that maybe it was because of what he grew up seeing at home. I thanked her, didn't say much, but that night I lay in bed thinking about it. Wondering if maybe I'd pushed too far. If maybe Greg hadn't just raised a troubled kid, but helped turn him into one, and I just threw gasoline on that fire. But the next morning, I woke up to glass shattered across my hallway. Someone had chucked a full beer bottle through my front window. Red spray paint was all over the glass. Same exact color they used on my garage months ago. I called the cops again. Showed them the footage. And this time, it was Logan. Hoodie up. Mask over his mouth. But I recognized those eyes. And this time? He wasn't alone. Greg was behind the wheel, sitting at the curb with the engine running, lights off. After Logan tossed the bottle, they drove off together. The police didn't waste time. Within an hour, they were back. Between the video, the vandalism, and Greg breaking the restraining order again, it was enough. They arrested Greg at 8:42 a.m. I watched from behind the curtain as they cuffed him in his own driveway. Logan came running out, screaming at the cops, shoving one of them. They arrested him too. Father and son. Same squad car. Gone before lunch. And this time, the neighbors didn't even try to act discreet. Phones out. Everyone filming. You'd think I'd feel victorious. But I didn't. I felt hollow. Like I'd been dragging this heavy weight for months, and now that it was finally over, I didn't know what to do with the empty space it left behind. Greg and Logan both got charged. Greg for violating the restraining order, property damage, and helping a minor commit a crime. Logan got hit with destruction of property and misdemeanor assault for pushing that officer. They both ended up with probation, fines, and community service. But their reputations? Destroyed. Greg's car business tanked. His reviews plummeted. The LLC was dissolved. 3 months later, their house went up for sale. Grass waist high. Shingles curling off the roof. No buyers at first, word had gotten around. He finally sold it for $40,000 under market value. But here's the part I've never told anyone. Not even my wife. After everything quieted down, after the arrests, the court dates, and their vanishing act, I walked into my garage one morning and noticed something on the workbench. A folded note. No name. Just 4 words scrawled out in rough handwriting. You didn't have to. To this day, I don't know who left it. Greg? Logan? Maybe even his wife, somehow. But I never forgot it. Because the truth is, I did go too far. I had every reason to be angry. Every right to defend myself. But somewhere along the line, after the paint, the anonymous tips, and the calls to city code, I stopped just defending. I started retaliating. And I crossed the line. I didn't just stand up for myself. I wrecked a man. I ruined him. And I have to live with that. People still thank me. Neighbors wave now. One even told me, "You cleaned up the block." But sometimes, late at night, I pass by the spot where Greg's garage used to say convicted felon, and I remember how he laughed when I asked him for a little respect. And how I made him cry in his own front yard. And I wonder which one of us ended up the worse man.